Imagine a currency that has lost over 99% of its value since 1979. This is the tragic reality of the Iranian Rial. In the next 10 minutes, we dissect the catastrophic convergence of events, crippling sanctions, geopolitical isolation, and fundamental economic failure. To understand the decline, we must first look back. Prior to 1979, the rial enjoyed relative stability, supported by immense oil revenue. The Islamic Revolution fundamentally reshaped Iran's economic priorities, shifting from Western integration towards self-sufficiency. This political seismic shift immediately created massive uncertainty, triggering the first significant wave of capital flight. The 8-year Iran-Iraq War, starting in 1980, demanded immense resources, financed primarily by deficit spending and oil exports. This period institutionalized government reliance on printing money, a fatal habit for any national currency. Oil, while a blessing, became the ultimate economic curse. Iran's dependence left it vulnerable to global market fluctuations. Crucially, oil revenues are almost exclusively earned in foreign currency, meaning the domestic rial is constantly under pressure. The fundamental cause of the rial's weakness, however, is not just internal structure, but external pressure. Sanctions. Sanctions began incrementally, tied initially to hostage crises and later to alleged support for militant groups. But the game truly changed when international focus shifted to Iran's nuclear enrichment program in the early 2000s. The United Nations and Western nations sought to isolate Iran completely, starving its economy of global access. The single most damaging action was the removal of Iranian banks from the global SWIFT financial messaging system. This made conducting legitimate, large-scale international trade nearly impossible, effectively stopping major oil sales. The loss of oil revenue immediately cut off the primary source of hard currency inflow needed to stabilize the rial. As dollars ceased flowing in, importers were forced to pay astronomical black market rates for necessary goods. In 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, offered a brief moment of reprieve. The rial saw a temporary strengthening as frozen assets were released and limited trade resumed. However, this recovery was fragile and short-lived. The political climate remained deeply uncertain. The decisive blow came in 2018 when the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA and implemented maximum pressure. This move didn't just target oil, it threatened any international entity doing business with Iran. This created extreme risk aversion, forcing even humanitarian trade to navigate massive regulatory hurdles. The result, a rapid, almost vertical collapse in the rial's value, shattering consumer confidence completely. But sanctions only tell half the story. Internal economic mismanagement amplified the currency's weakness. Iran's central bank often lacks true independence, frequently bowing to political demands for increased spending. Massive government budget deficits are persistent, driven by heavy subsidies and inefficient state-owned enterprises. Subsidies for fuel, food, and utilities are enormous drains, yet attempting to remove them causes social unrest. When the government can't cover deficits through oil, it resorts to the last lever, monetization of debt. In simple terms, they print more money. This floods the market with rials, driving inflation to debilitating levels. Hyperinflation means savings vanish overnight, and the cost of essential goods skyrockets, far outstripping wages. The inflation rate in Iran has frequently topped 40% and sometimes approached triple digits, a sign of monetary system failure. This creates a feedback loop. High inflation causes people to dump rials for hard assets, weakening the rial further. Furthermore, widespread government corruption diverts resources and discourages productive foreign investment. Investment requires stability, something the rial has not offered in decades. Foreign capital flees political risk. One of the most immediate effects is the proliferation of the black market exchange rate. The government attempts to maintain an official fixed rate, used mainly for essential state imports. This official rate is artificially strong, creating huge opportunities for profit through arbitrage, known as rent-seeking. Individuals who secure official rate currency can instantly convert it on the black market for 4 or 5 times the value. This practice fuels corruption and leaks vital hard currency away from the central bank's control. Attempts by the government to stabilize the rate through direct intervention have consistently failed. Why? Because the underlying issues, sanctions and lack of economic production, remain unresolved. Every Iranian citizen understands that the rial is a poor store of value. They seek alternatives. The high demand for foreign currencies, especially the US dollar, means Iran is exporting its stability. Gold is another preferred hedge against inflation, resulting in soaring domestic prices for precious metals. In recent years, even cryptocurrencies, despite government attempts to restrict them, have become a popular exchange medium. Capital flight, wealthy individuals moving their money and assets abroad, further drains the national economy. Every time political tensions flare up, the rial experiences immediate, sharp losses. This sensitivity makes the rial one of the most politically volatile currencies in the world. Iran's heavy investment in regional proxy groups and military strength also demands substantial non-productive spending. This diverts funds away from domestic development, which could otherwise foster non-oil exports. The government has often postponed necessary, painful economic reforms to maintain political consensus. These reforms would include privatization, cutting subsidies, and allowing the central bank genuine control. The lack of reliable economic data and transparency further hinders effective policymaking and scares away potential partners. When currency collapses, the primary victims are ordinary citizens, their purchasing power utterly destroyed. For those reliant on fixed incomes, basic goods like medicine and imported food become unaffordable luxuries. The need for larger denominations means simple transactions become physically cumbersome, requiring bags of cash. This logistical headache, coupled with zero confidence, paved the way for a drastic structural change. In 2019, the Iranian parliament approved a plan to slash 4 zeros from the national currency. The new currency unit is called the toman, effectively replacing the old rial at a rate of 10,000 to 1. However, this is a cosmetic change. It simplifies counting, but does nothing to stop inflation itself. It's a historical precedent seen in Zimbabwe and Venezuela. Redenominating a currency doesn't fix its fundamental worth. The only way to achieve long-term stability is to earn foreign currency through genuine export diversity. But achieving this requires international banking access and reliable foreign investment, both blocked by sanctions. Even if sanctions were lifted tomorrow, the damage to domestic trust would take years, perhaps decades, to repair. The government faces a continuous dilemma: how to subsidize food prices without exacerbating the money supply problem. The rial's trajectory is a clear example of how economic policy and geopolitics are inextricably linked. It highlights the vulnerability of highly resource-dependent economies under political pressure. For ordinary Iranians, every morning brings the possibility of a new, lower exchange rate. The currency's depreciation acts as a hidden tax, forcing immediate consumption rather than saving. Businesses cannot plan for the future, leading to stagnation in the private non-oil sector. The economic stress also directly fuels social discontent and public protests, further destabilizing the state. The government's response is often heavier regulation and suppression, not fundamental reform. However, Iran is actively seeking non-dollar trade partners, turning east to China and Russia. These barter and local currency arrangements help mitigate the direct impact of U.S. sanctions, but they are not a full replacement. The long-term health of the rial depends entirely on 2 factors: de-escalation with the West and internal fiscal discipline. Without sanctions relief, Iran remains dependent on a high oil price to survive, a precarious position. And without internal discipline, any wealth generated will simply be printed away through inflation. The introduction of the toman only delays the next inevitable denomination if the economic trajectory persists. The story of the rial is a cautionary tale about the immense power of financial leverage in modern geopolitics. It demonstrates how targeted financial exclusion can bring a nation's currency to its knees. The people of Iran continue to bear the heaviest cost of this complex economic and political war. Their ingenuity, however, remains resilient, adapting to barter systems and utilizing global digital cash. The fate of the toman and the Iranian economy hinges on future diplomatic breakthroughs regarding the nuclear program. A full return to the JCPOA might provide temporary relief, injecting billions in frozen assets. But experts agree that fundamental structural economic reforms must accompany any diplomatic success. The decades of policy drift and reliance on easy oil money have created habits difficult to break. Only a sustained effort to diversify exports and embrace transparency can restore faith in the national currency. Until then, the Iranian Rial, soon to be the toman, remains a barometer of political instability, not economic health. Its continued decline is a stark reminder of the devastating human cost of geopolitical tension and economic isolation. Thank you for joining this deep dive into the complex factors driving Iran's currency crisis. The convergence of sanctions, oil dependency, and internal monetary policy created this perfect economic storm. The challenge for Tehran remains finding stability without compromising its political identity on the global stage. If you found this analysis insightful, take a moment to engage with the video. What solutions do you believe could genuinely stabilize the Iranian currency? Share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments section below. We appreciate your engagement and participation in these critical discussions. For further reading and sources used in this production, check the description box. We cover global political economy documentaries weekly. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on crucial global economic events.